afternoon. Let's start this way. Hands up if you are a founder of a startup or a business. Good start, we're in the right place. How many of you are seeking funding right now? And how many of you would put your hands up and acknowledge that right now, it's a tough environment out there? How many of you would say that? I wasn't asking you. Now, so you heard a bit about Techstars, but Techstars is a lead pre-seed investor, not just here in the States, but globally. And this conversation was supposed to be about the myths of early stage funding and investing. But I think, off the bat, we should say that Maelle and I have spoken quite a bit in recent days. And in the first 3 months of this year, a lot of those myths have gone out the window. Things have changed. The macro environment has changed. Doing banking has changed, and we'll get into that a little bit, a sore subject, I'm sure, for many in this room. But there's also a lot of different types of optimism, and I know that you're keen to talk about that. So let's start here, Maëlle Gavet. To your mind, huge experience of investing in early stage startups. What is the biggest myth, or was the biggest myth about investing in early stage startups?
Hi everyone, very happy to be here. Thanks for joining us. And if you're founders, I'm with you. I've been a founder 3 times myself, so I know the pain. In terms of the myths, look, there've been a lot of them. Like, one of them was that it was actually easy to raise money. Like, I remember being in Silicon Valley a year ago or so, and people saying, oh yeah, you can raise, you just have a couple of meetings on the back of a napkin and you're gonna get money. Like, easy, like money just on the floor. And that's not true. Like, that's not true anymore. That wasn't really true then for quite a few founders, because there's some bias in the way funding gets allocated. So that's, in my opinion, one big myth. The other big myth is that getting funding is enough. Like, that's the only thing that you should be asking from your investors. And very clearly, we at Techstars think that money is a key piece of the equation, a key piece of the success for founders, because if you don't have money, you're not going to go very far. But that's definitely not enough, especially early stage. You need investors who are at your side in the trenches, fighting with you, hopefully not against you, but fighting together with you to get you to the next step, and the step after, and the step after. And I think there's been for many years this idea that VCs are just there to give you a check.
Techstars has invested, I think, in almost 8,000 companies.
3,500.
3,500,
yeah.
My bad, I apologize.
No,
but
sorry.
It's still a lot. What's the single truth that you would say to each of those founders that you invested in? I think, a lot of the founders and potential founders in this room would like some upfront advice, which is to say, what's the world really look like right now?
Yeah, so I would start by I always ask founders that I meet for the first time, how much time do you have to allocate to that idea of yours? Like, is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Because if you say anything less than 10 years, being an entrepreneur is probably not for you. Most of the time, despite what you can see in the newspapers and magazines, like, the overnight success are anything but overnight, and they've taken most of the time over a decade to arrive there. So that's usually the first question I ask them. And then we go on talking about what is the type of business that they're trying to build, what is the problem they're trying to achieve, to address, how are they going to build a sustainable business, because that's another myth that is not working anymore. It used to be that part of your job as a founder, as a CEO, was to raise, and it was quite literally sometimes 20, 30, 50% of your time. And there are entire businesses that have been built with the idea that every 12 to 18 months they're going to go and fundraise. You are not going to be able to do that anymore, at least in the foreseeable future. And so the next conversation becomes, okay, how do you build a business that is less dependent on fundraising than what you could have done even a year ago?
The environment that we find ourselves in now, even just the first 3 months of 2023, is very different to what it was in 2022 and before the pandemic. Higher rates, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, all of this kind of has put a real focus on the cost of capital. a tightening of financial conditions. Those are really big economic terms, but how hard is the fundraising situation for a pre-seed or early stage founder right now? What are they confronted with when they do try and go out to raise funds?
So it is objectively harder to fundraise today than it was 12 months ago. I mean, if anyone objects, I would love to hear what you think it's easier, because everything that I'm hearing from all of our founders, and we have 24,000 investors who have at one point or another invested in a Techstars portfolio company, so we do talk to them a lot, and it is objectively a lot harder. At the same time, pre-seed remains an extremely attractive area for venture capital, for angel investors, and so there's still a ton of activities there.
I want to jump on why. So you and I were talking off stage. I don't know if anyone in the audience follows PitchBook and their data, but in short, the US VC-backed deals were at their lowest level in the first 3 months of this year, going back 13 quarters. Yet every time a venture capitalist comes on the Bloomberg Technology show, they say, there's going to be so much activity at the pre-seed and early stage. That's a bit of a dichotomy for a lot of people. Why? Why does the early stage founder continue to be able to stand out?
Because there's really right now a wave of innovation which is coming to the market. And I can't fully explain why, but if you look at health tech, if you look at fintech, if you look at food tech, if you look at sustainability, anything related to climate change, there is a whole new generation of founders. I think to some extent the tech layoff of the last 18 months have contributed to that. Not only, by the way. There is an entire generation of founders, maybe COVID made a lot of people reconsider what life is all about and make like entrepreneurship a potential option. And then on top of that, I think for different reasons, like whether it's AI or blockchain or progress in nanotechnology, there is a confluence of factors that brings a lot more innovation right now. And that's happening really early stage. Valuation at early stage haven't really dropped. They're fair, I mean, especially compared to valuation at A, B, C stages. So they remain for founders palatable in terms of dilution. For VC, these are smaller checks, which means less exposure, which means less risk.
Does it mean less favorable or even palatable terms for this audience here who are trying to go out and raise money for their new business?
Potentially, depending on how sexy your company is, because that's not a myth, that's a reality. There are sexy companies and there are non-sexy companies. And the VC got to decide who is sexy and who is not.
Is that fair?
No, not at all, but no one has ever said that the VC world was fair. So, no, it's not.
It's never pleasant talking about layoffs, and many of you may decline, but has anyone actually in this room, raise of hands, lost their job in the technology sector in the last year and started their own business as a result of that? There are a few.
Not many.
Not many, and you and I have talked in the last week or so that has been another point of conversation, that if you look at the 2008 financial crisis, and now, there's never been more people, talented technologists with the need to do something. Is that an opportunity for the people in this room to partner, to
partner with talent?
Yeah, with talent.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so let me give you an example. About 18 months ago, whenever I would go to one of our programs, so we run programs in 14 different countries and 60 different cities, so I have the opportunity to accumulate a lot of miles. When I would go and meet with some of our portfolio companies, one topic that would almost systematically come to the table was, I am having trouble to hire a chief product officer or a head of product. I'm having a hard time to hire an engineer. I don't have the money to pay this type of salary. That conversation is pretty much gone. Like I was in 2 of our programs last week, and no one has asked me, like, how do I recruit a head of product? It's anecdotal, but we've seen that over and over again.
What does that tell you about the founder? You say you're worried that they're not in that mindset?
Worried in which, to be in what mindset?
That you want always the founders that you're backing to be kind of opportunistic, and that if talent's available, to be like, yeah, go out and get it.
I do think that actually what's happening is talent is available, talent is cheaper, and there is an opportunity now to hire a kick-ass product manager or a super strong engineer when a year and a half ago it was just like almost impossible. Like the number of founders who came to me saying like, I don't know what to do, I don't have the money or the network to hire the person I need, what do I do? And we don't have this conversation anymore. But again, it's anecdotal, so.
How does Techstars help? You know, I guess if somebody in this room was to have a meeting with you and make a pitch, what is it that you want to see them demonstrate they've been doing? You know, you want to see a founder that's, I've got a great idea and I'm just super focused on delivering it. You mentioned that often there's too much of a preoccupation of I must raise money.
Yes. The simplest way of describing what we're looking for is we're looking for unstoppable founders. Because being a founder is hard. And there's going to be so many ups and downs on a journey. And then sometimes you're going to feel on top of the world and sometimes at the very bottom of the ocean. And more often than not, it will happen over the same day. And so you need to be like really with a spine of iron to go through that. So we're looking for unstoppable founders first and foremost. And then we have a conversation with them about their ideas and the market. But most of the founders who come to Techstars end up pivoting during the 3 months boot camp that we put them through. And so we do obviously judge the idea and the market that you're trying to address and whether you have relevant experience. But ultimately, we see our job as, one, providing you with capital, fine, but also then providing you with very hands-on support during our accelerator program, but also after the accelerator program, and then connecting you to a big network. And that's the formula. Part of it is going to be, are you sure the business that you started with is the business you want to finish with?
The biggest story of the year so far on Bloomberg Technology has been Silicon Valley Bank. Mm-hmm. Shall we talk about Silicon Valley Bank?
Do I have a choice?
No, because I get to ask the questions. I think a raise of hands, is anyone here willing to say that they were a depositor or a client of Silicon Valley Bank and were impacted? A fair few, not as many as perhaps one would expect. The thing that we heard time and again was it was SVB that would take us when we started our business. They were the lifeblood for early stage startups.
Absolutely.
Fast forward, there's no need to do a full post-mortem, but what is the net result for this community, to your mind, out of what happened with Silicon Valley Bank?
So if the good news is that if you were banking with Silicon Valley like we do and like hundreds of our startups do, Silicon Valley Bank is functioning again fully. Like you can access your money, you can make wires, you can like your credit lines, if you had obtained them before the meltdown, all working, like everything is good. The challenge is this is a snapshot at a given time. The need to get credit lines, to get venture debt, to get even bank accounts for startups that have business model that are very different than what traditional banking is used to are still there. And the challenge is in the current market, there's not a lot of alternative. There are a few that are trying to catch up, but just a simple thing. I think we all take for granted that you should be able to do a wire transfer on your mobile phone, that you should, or electronically at least. I will not name names, but we at Techstars, having had to open new bank accounts or additional bank accounts to the ones that we had at Silicon Valley, we have experienced firsthand what it is to do a wire transfer at some of the more traditional banks. And I think my CFO got his first white hair trying to make that happen.
Wow. Is it important for even at the pre-seed and early stage for a founder to have diversified banking? Is that a lesson learned here?
Yes, I think in general, diversification or not putting your eggs all in the same basket, whether it's banking or anything else, where you get your money from venture capital as well. Diversification is a must. I think the SVB situation was very much of a black swan. And I'm not in favor of having a startup opening 20 bank accounts. I heard some investors advising their portfolio company, you should not have a single bank account with more than $250,000, which means that for a lot of startups, if they've just fundraised, it means that they should have like 5, 10 bank accounts. Like, who has the time to manage that? This is not practical. But yeah, you should have a couple.